Okay, so the next up are epiglottal and glottal stops. There are no pharyngeal stops, but there are these two epiglottal and glottal stops. The gestures for epiglottal sounds involve the epiglottis, which is this little thing here, uh, being pulled towards the back wall of the pharynx, while for the glottal stop, you stop the airflow by making an airtight seal with your vocal folds. Um, and that's about it. For epiglotals and glottals, as I said, there are no pharyngeal stops. However, there is an epiglottal stop. We'll first cover that one. Epiglottal stops are very rare in languages. I think the epiglottal stop is found in maybe like three languages overall. And here is how Peter Landefoged produces it. So basically you are using your epiglottis, and at this point you may start thinking about strangling yourself with the back of your tongue or the epiglottis and say right? And there is no way of knowing whether you hit the target except for some maybe acoustic properties that we will learn more about. However, as this is unusual speech sound, we won't focus on it so much. There are also glottal stops, as in this one. You're basically squeezing your vocal folds and not allowing air to pass through for a brief period of brief period of time. And sometimes you have glottal stop in words such as or ball, kitten, kin. If you are speaking or if using that variety of English, I'll focus on these later. But yeah, glottal stops are produced with vocal folds squeezed, and they are quite common in languages around the world, or languages around the world have this sound glottal stop. And many languages, I know that indigenous languages such as Siouan languages, almost each one of these has glottal stop in their inventory. For pharyngeal, I didn't say that you can write it like this, the same as a glottal stop. The symbol is the same as the one for the glottal stop, but you have this line crossing or a strike mark crossing it at its stem, right? So yeah, that's about it. And I have to say that epiglottis, which we will see here in Stefan's video, again, is this part here. So this is the epiglottis, and it serves when you're swallowing food. It precludes food from entering your trachea and then lungs, and it precludes you from dying. And that's the what you get from epiglottis. That's its primary function, and it's very important for us humans. I guess more important than producing a sound. But you can produce a sound, and here is the epiglottis. This is not Stefan producing the epiglottal stop, but this is just to see where the epiglottis is.
Oil.
And here it is, right? This is epiglottis.
Oil.
And you see he's even touching a little bit the pharyngeal wall here, but not technically producing the sound oil because of not producing right with it. So yeah, that's about it on epiglottis and glottal stops. Epiglottals are common in a couple of languages. Agul is one of those languages, and spoken in Dagestan near the Caspian Sea in Russia. Many of Caucasus languages of the Caucasus, I think in Western Asia actually have these epiglottals, but in the UPSI database I said that there were only 3. For the epiglottals in, for example, Agul, which is spoken in Dagestan, Caspian Sea in Russia, you have this one.
Ya.
Yak.
Ya'ar.
Ya'ar. Yeah, so these two are at the end of the words, and these are in the middle of the words. Let's hear se,
se,
and
se'er,
se. Yeah. I also have to say here that this part of the world is fun to work at or be a phonetician there, because there are so many speech sounds, consonant sounds especially, um, in those parts of the world. High number of consonants. Why are there no nasal pharyngeals, epiglottals, or glottals? So that is a deep thought question for you that you can think about. Pause the video and try to answer it, this question on your own. I'll answer it here now. Obviously, no nasal sounds, because I'm going to draw again, so be aware of that. Apparently, if you make glottal stop somewhere here, right? You make an epiglottal stop somewhere here. You make a pharyngeal stop here, or there are no pharyngeal stops, but in theory there are. In theory there could be. So you make an epiglottal stop by pressing this epiglottis towards the wall of your throat, and when you do that, you're precluding the airflow from going up, further up, right? So from going towards the velum and going through your nose. So you're basically stopping the airflow, and therefore there can be no airflow in your nose. So for these aerodynamic reasons, you cannot have nasal pharyngeals, nasal epiglottals, nasal glottals. Okay, now I would like us to move to coronals. And coronals are interesting because coronals include dental, alveolar, and post-alveolar sounds. We need to consider two parameters here. First parameter is the active articulator. So, as I said, coronals includes the tongue tip, which is known as apical. So if you are making a coronal stop, you might be making an apical stop as well. So you might see this term out there because of a very simple reason, because of the apex, which is the tip of your tongue, like the tip of your tongue. I won't touch it right now, but it's right there. And apex comes from Latin, which means the tip or peak, hence the sound called apical. And this is one of the active articulators. Another active articulator, or the other active articulator, is the tongue blade, which is also known as lamina, right? And therefore laminal sounds. So lamina, here from Latin, which means thin layer of a surface, in our case flat surface. Yeah, like laminated floors, maybe, because you're adding layers after layer, but thin layer of surface. So perhaps if you take a look at the tongue here, you might say this could be the tip, right? Apex, and behind it would be the blade or the lamina, right? Okay. The sounds that you make with apex are called apical. The sounds that you make with lamina are called laminal sounds. Now, they have some surface to hit or target to hit, and the targets are the upper lip, So it can be linguolabial. Linguus stands for tongue, and labial for lips. So the upper lip, as in between the teeth, as in interdental. The upper teeth, like dental. The alveolar ridge, alveolar, and behind the alveolar ridge, postalveolar. So going from the front to back, right? From anterior to posterior position. All right, so we know that we have two types of articulators, passive, active and passive, and active articulators hit the target. We can say that coronals or coronal stops are usually dental or alveolar, and they can be either or. There are very few languages that contrast these. Dental alveolar contrast are very rare, right? So these are rare, but they do exist. Dental stops are usually produced with the lamina. So we would use lamina to produce dental stops or blade, as is typical in French, Spanish. And if you try producing them, you should try without interfering the tip of the tongue, but a little bit towards the back of the tip of the tongue, which is blade. So you produce the, right? And alveolar stops in English, for example, are usually produced with the apex. With the apex. Even though there is a possibility of you producing them laminally, depending on your variety. So some speakers of English might produce them laminally, but usually alveolar stops are in English are apical. Okay, now that we know this, we can take a look at a simple diagram here. Figure, maybe to say figure, it's a mid-sagittal diagram, but turned upside down, sort of. And we can say that, for example, this is the blade, right? The blade of the tongue, this surface, and it's hitting the teeth, right? So it's hitting the teeth, so we have dental sound. Unlike dental, we have at the tip of the tongue, right, hitting the alveolar ridge here. Yeah, and you can have other spots with that hit the tip of that are hit with the tip of the tongue, such as post-alveolar spots right here, as well as post-alveolar spots that are hit with the blade, right? So we can have generally we can have those sounds, but as I said, in general, normally alveolar stops are apical and dental stops are laminal. All right, so I want to play mono language again, as it shows you something. So let me just bring it up here. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So many of these. Okay. Okay, bear with me. Okay, here it is. Yeah. So this is a mono. We already watched this one, and he's producing aveturu, right, with the dental t, and we have to pay attention to that part. I'll play the whole thing, and then I'll now slow it down. So he's producing labiodental flap, and after it he is producing t. Here it is. So here is the basically the blade of the tongue touching the upper teeth. Aveturu, turu. And even if you produce it t, you can feel slight difference between the apical and laminal. Okay, so I want us to move on to talk about Yanyuwa coronal contrasts. Yanyuwa is spoken in Northern Territory of Australia, and in Yanyuwa you have coronal contrasts that are laminal dental and apical alveolar. So let's hear it out and sing along.
Uturumaya, Uturumaya, Uturu,
So the first one is Wudurumaya,
Uturumaya,
Wudurumaya,
Uturu,
Wuduru, Wuduru, yeah.
Uturumaya, Uturu, Turu, 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 Uturumaya, Turumaya, Turumaya, Turumaya.
So you can hear the difference between the two, and they have this contrast. As I said, they're very rare, but they exist in Yanyuwa, which is spoken in Northern Territory, Australia. And when it comes to Australia, they have some interesting stats here, or we have some interesting stats regarding the Australian languages, indigenous languages mainly, of course. Yanyuwa has 7 stop place contrasts, so I think it's the only language with 7 stop place contrasts. So all the stops are there, and if for some reason Australian languages have a lot of stops but no fricatives, or very few fricatives, right? What I have displayed here are languages with the following number of stop place contrasts. Out of 317 languages, that's the UPSI database that a little bit outdated, but is still relevant for the punchline here, and that is that 2 languages have 2 stop place contrasts. So, for example, bilabial and alveolar, let's say. And there are only 2 languages with 2 stop place contrasts. With 3 stop place contrasts, there are 171 languages. So the greatest number of languages has 3 place stop place contrasts, such as, for example, bilabial, alveolar, and velar, most likely. 4 stop place contrasts have 103 languages, for example, bilabial, alveolar, velar, palatal, right? Then 35 languages have 5 stop place contrasts, and 6 languages have 6 stop place contrasts. 5 of these languages are from Australia. As I said, Australian indigenous languages or Aboriginal languages are quite popular or famous for this kind of feature. Okay, so lots of stops, and so many stops and so few fricatives in Australian languages. And as I said, Yanyuwa has 7 stop place contrasts, which we will hear and produce later. And would now like to move to another place of articulation, and that is the retroflex place of articulation. Retroflex stops are produced in the post-alveolar region by curling the tip of the tongue back. So it has to be post-alveolar region, of course, because you are curling the tip of the tongue back, right? And these are common in South Asian languages such as Hindi, Tamil, and Telugu, which are spoken, I think, in India and Sri Lanka, right? And this is the Peter Ladefoged producing these. We'll hear them, and we have to note that they are written, or symbols are written just like a retroflex that has a hook like this, right? Retroflex R, remember it. You just do this with D, for example. This retroflex D, D, D. Retroflex T, T. It goes a little bit down, and then a hook, and N, N. Again, right? Okay, so that's how they are written. And let's hear them out and try to sing along. The catch with these is to basically say the words instead of arta, you say arta, but lose the R before this T, right? Arta, arda, arna.
Arta, Arda, Arna,
Okay, arta,
Arta.
arda,
Arda.
arna.
Anna.
Right, so you're as if you're producing this R, retroflex R, which should be easy for you, even easier than for me because I'm not a native speaker of English. So it should be easier for you, but just lose this R, retroflex R, and produce t, d, n, t, d, n, right? As in,
Arta.
oops,
Arda. Anna.
right. So these were the retroflex stops, and this is an image taken from world's sounds of the world's languages by Madison. No, yeah, Madison Ladifoged, right? And these stops are from Hindi, Tamil, and Telugu. Hindi retroflex stops are produced like this, not so much of a curling of the tongue. Tamil curls the tongue even further back, and Telugu, I guess, curling it up and bunching up the tongue. So three different ways of retroflex stops, the three different smaller qualities among these languages. And let's hear how they do this in Sindhi.
Ban.
So these are regular ones.
Ban. Daru. Daru. Taru.
So okay, we have R here, which is trill, not a retroflex. But now we have a contrast between dor,
Door. Tanu.
tanu. They have also obviously palatal stops in retroflex.
Jat. Jat.
Jat, jat, right? Difficult to produce.
Chattu. Chattu.
Chattu, chattu,
Chattu.
right? And
Guna.
gun,
Guna.
gun,
Guna. Kannu.
and finally kanu, which is a regular one. So Sindhi has these 5 places of contrast in when it comes to stops. I'll now move on to Malayalam place contrasts. They have so all of these are coronals. We're talking about coronals because they're produced with either the blade or the tip of the tongue. Retroflex as well, and in Sindhi as well, and Malayalam too. Malayalam has a set of interesting stops. So it has bilabial, and these are if you see these two one next to another, they denote geminate. They are geminates because there are 2 of them, and you just need to produce them a little bit longer, as if you're producing m, n, n, as in kammi,
Kammi. Panni.
panni. This n is obviously dental,
Kanni. Kanni.
so
Kanni. 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 Ni. Ni. Panni.
yeah, very very subtle difference between dental and alveolar.
Kanni.
Kanni,
Kanni.
palatal,
Kanni.
kanyi,
Kungi.
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 Yeah, so you can listen to those and sing along, practice, right? But Malayalam has some interesting place contrasts, right? Okay, so yeah, we've come to what we call palatography plus lingography. Palatography is basically a procedure where you apply oil and charcoal to one's tongue, that is to one's palate up there, and then when they produce sound, the traces that remain after producing a sound tell us more of where that sound was produced, which region, right? With respect to lingography, it's a similar procedure, but you apply charcoal to the tongue, right? So we have palatographic and lingographic records of toda, words pot actually, part and retroflex part, I think. So basically with retroflex, you can see here that the the tongue has curled up there, and here you can see that it's the tip of the tongue that has been involved. With dental, you can clearly see that it's the blade of the tongue that has been involved, right? With this one, and that it hit the teeth, right? With alveolar, you can see that it was produced in the alveolar ridge without hitting the teeth so much. This black on the teeth is from the speaker, not from the charcoal. And you can see that the tip of the tongue was involved. So you can clearly see on these difference between the three stop places: dental, alveolar, and retroflex. And that's an interesting technique to use. Dr. Winters uses it in the 441, so that's fun to observe. All right, I promised Yanua 7 stop place contrasts, legendary language, I would say, because of that. It has all of the stops there are. So we can have, for example, bilabial.
Upingo.
Wawingo.
Otoromaya.
Wordurumaya. Yeah, this is laminal dental. Wordurumaya.
Wotoro.
Worduru.
Wodola.
Wordula. Wordula. Apical retroflex. Very precise definition.
Wochola.
Wordula. This is a palatal. That's why it has this palatalization a little bit. The wordula. And we have front velar.
Kokolo.
Gugulu. Gugulu. And also here is a retroflex lateral as well. Gugulu. And back velar.
Wokoko.
Wogogo. Wogongo.
Wokoko.
So you notice that this g is different from this g.
Kokolo.
In the middle. Gugulu.
Kokolo. Wokoko.
Wogongo. Right. So yeah, velars, alveolars, retroflex, dentals, bilabials, all of those are there. In all sorts of coronals, such as dental, alveolar, retroflex, and the dorsal, such as velar, and labials, such as bilabials, right? In Yanua. So you can sing along when you're producing these. I would, I don't want to say finally, but we have 2 more places to go to. These are the sounds that are produced with 2 places at once. Labial-velar stops are not uncommon, especially in African languages, so there are plenty of labial-velars. Examples are from Idoma, spoken in Nigeria, Niger-Congo language. So Idoma has some labials such as p, b, and m, right?
Aba. Aba. Ama.
It has some velars such as
Aka. Aga. Ongaji.
onaji, right? And it has labial velars. So labial velars are produced when your back of the tongue is hitting your velum first, and then you're producing, you're squeezing your, your lips are touching itself, right? So your lips are hitting each other. These 2 should be produced simultaneously, but that's impossible because of the aerodynamics and because of the articulators that are moving through your tongue, through your vocal tract. So first of all, you cannot really produce them at the same time, but you have to try, right? And that's how you will get to produce this one.
Akpa.
Akpa.
Agba.
Agba.
Angma.
Angma. Or ama. Because there are tones, different tones in this language. So we have, we don't have akpa, right? You don't actually hear this k being released because you have already produced p in front, and you need more time to hit p, right? That's why p is heard afterwards.
Akpa.
Akpa.
Agba.
Agba, right? You can hear a little bit of g here, but still it's one phoneme, it's one sound.
Angma.
Angma. This one might be more difficult.
Angma.
Angma, right? But the same procedure applies for this labiovelar nasal, right? And this is a voiceless, this is voiced, and this is a nasal one. So you're doubly articulating these, and these are not separate phonemes. That's why they are. That's why we're using this type bar. They are connected with a type bar, and so remember that when you try to produce them, it's not agba, right? It's not like that. It's agma, it's angma, agba, right? Just try to produce these two as fast as you can and as simultaneously. Okay, so let's play them again.
Agba. Agba. Angma.
And you can sing along. All right, and finally, I can say finally, linguolabials. Linguolabials are formed by touching the blade of the tongue to the upper lip. Yeah, technically blade. So you would do this. Da. It's not easy, but it can be done. And examples are from Venentout, a language spoken in Vanuatu, an island in South Pacific, a very small island. So you would have something like this. Patuk. And linguolabial would be tate. Right? Numuk. And this one, if you think about it a little bit and say nanak, right? So you just need your blade to touch your upper lip and open or lower your velum in order for the air to go through to make a nasal. Okay, so these are linguolabials, and I think I owe you one more video clip. This is Britney Spears producing linguolabials. I hope you know who Britney Spears is. This video clip was sent to Dr. Winters by Dr. Flynn. So what were they doing? I have no idea, but here it is. I mean, you'll see. Okay, too loud. So she's producing linguolabial like this. Yeah, clearly you can clearly see it, right? Britney, a legend of linguolabials. All right, so to wrap up this lesson, I just have to say that most languages have 3 stop places, as we saw based on our OOPSI database: bilabial, dental, alveolar, and velar, or these are coronals, right? If a language has a 4th stop place, it is usually palatal or uvular, right? If a language has a 5th stop place, it is usually retroflex, sometimes labial-velar. Retroflex sounds are subsumed under the coronal sounds as well, so we can maybe treat them like that. And say coronals are general sounds that are produced next to bilabials and velars, and after them you have palatals and uvulars. So that would be it from me for this lesson. Take care, and hope to see you in person. If not, you'll watch me. I think we'll go through airstream mechanisms like this in a video, or through the video, and then we might see each other. If not, just watch out for another installment of Linguistics 341, Introduction to Phonetics. Thank you, and see you soon.